my name is Lawrence.
معكم محمد صيام واليوم
مرحبا معكم رياض حتى نحكي عن أجدد.
Hi, this is Jane. Today we're gonna. Hi, my name is Amrit. Hi, this is
Hi everyone, I'm Fujifilm.
Hello everyone, this is Ilyan from MediaCast.
Hey
Today
everyone.
I'm gonna show you guys.
Welcome everyone.
Hello. As we roll on to our next session today, our next guest needs no introduction at all. It's none other than Fujifilm, who's joining us today from Dubai. So we've got a partner who's joining us from the same town today. Beginning in 1934 as Japan's pioneering photographic filmmaker, Fujifilm has leveraged its imaging and information technology to become a global presence known for innovation in healthcare, graphic arts, optical devices, highly functional materials, and other high-tech areas. Today, of course, we're talking about the lenses, the optical side of it. Joining me today from Dubai are two friends from Fujifilm, Amrit Pandrangi, who's the regional sales manager, and Richard Lackey, the regional marketing manager. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jaffer.
Thanks for having us.
Good to see you. Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Good to see you too.
Well, you know, it's almost like we are in the same town, and then with one of your lenses, I probably can see your building from where I am.
Yeah, very long one.
So, how are you guys today?
Yeah, good.
Good, very good.
Yeah, great. So thanks a lot for joining us. And obviously, you know, we're going to talk today about the lenses that you've got, specifically about the lenses that we can use with the Blackmagic cameras. So before we go into the details, can you talk a little bit about those, and then we get into the sequence of things?
Yeah, so today we're excited to share with you a number of lenses that we think fit particularly well with Blackmagic design users. We're going to look at two lenses on the broadcast kind of ENG side, and then we're going to look at one lens in particular on the cine side. So really what we want to present to everyone is that high-end professional broadcast and cine lenses don't have to be unaffordable. So we're going to show you two excellent affordable broadcast lenses that are high resolution, parafocal, have servo control, and offer all the advantages of what you'd expect from a professional ENG lens, but on an affordable budget. And then we're going to also look, especially in the context of the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, you know, you've got a camera there that's offering unprecedented image detail, you know, so it makes your choice of optics, you know, even more critically important. So we're going to show you a cinema zoom with a good range that resolves 12K detail and can actually replace the need for a whole set of prime lenses. And this is a lens that, you know, starts at least at around $10,000 US, and without the servo. It's a little bit more with the servo. So these three lenses we're going to look at today. And yeah, we're going to start off by getting into the two broadcast lenses. Fantastic.
Okay. So what are the lenses and the broadcast lenses that you want to talk about today?
Yeah, we're going to talk about the LA 16x8 BRM, and also the XA20 S/8.5 BRM. Okay. But my colleague Amrit, I guess, is going to start off kind of answering a couple questions on that. Cool. So yeah, we're going to start off with the LA 16x8.
Great. So as we get into it, Amrit, let me ask you, what are the advantages of investing in broadcast lenses versus cheap photo zoom lenses?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's obviously going to be a big advantage in investing in something that's, you know, purpose-built for the cause. And not least of which would be, you know, for example, focus breathing. All of our, you know, our broadcast lenses have minimal to no focus breathing at all. You will see a huge advantage in the smoothness of the zoom function across the full range. The physical build quality, that's obviously going to be a big point. It'll also help in the long run with durability as well because the best possible materials are actually used. When it comes to control, I guess that's really sort of the key advantage over like a sort of a photo zoom lens. You have many options for control. So you have obviously the servo built in on the side, which is great for any sort of handheld use. We also have the remote function, so you could use a regular servo kit or even control it remotely from the CCU. So obviously this leads to like a lot of versatility when it comes to these aspects. Also, when it comes to the XA20, it does have also a built-in doubler or extender, so that can again help to give you more versatility on the whole on basically the whole package.
Mm-hmm. Right. So you mentioned the names again. So the two budget broadcast lenses of Fujifilm. So what are the names again?
So basically, we have the LA16 to start with, which is, obviously you guys know it very well. This was a collaboration between Fujifilm globally and Blackmagic, and it's a fantastic budget 4K full professional broadcast lens. It's great because obviously it's it's 2/3 inch. It has a great focal length. It can cover 8 to 128, so it basically covers most of your filming needs. And it has some added bonuses like the electronic back focus adjustment or even a macro mode. And it's fantastic because it is a full 4K lens for a fantastic price.
That's great. Now, what are the key differences between Fujinon's HD and 4K lenses?
So, unlike a lot of the other manufacturers, when it comes to lenses, Fuji has invested heavily in the 4K range. And so these aren't just repurposed HD lenses that were, we just cranked up the resolution and then sort of sold them. These were built in a whole new factory using completely different internal design. The optical glass is completely different throughout, including the lens coating. As you know, Fuji has a proprietary lens coating that has over 99% optical transmission, which is one of the reasons why we have such a fantastic image on our broadcast lenses. Internally, the internal flags as well as the coatings are completely different as well. And you'll also find that the accuracy of the focus mechanism has improved. So one of the key sort of benefits to using a 4K lens, especially with Fuji, is that it's not just the resolution. So for example, if you were to take two cameras, put them side by side, and HD cameras, and have a Fuji 4K and a Fuji HD on the same in the same scene, you will find that our 4K lens, even in HD mode, would have much better HDR, much better contrast, and that's by design as well. So the idea is you could buy that 4K lens now, use it on an HD camera, and then be future-proof, as well as get an improved picture quality today. Also, one of the key points is that a lot of other manufacturers, when they measure 4K or they measure their resolution, they measure it at the center of the image. So for us, our standard is quite high, so it has to be 4K from the center of the image to the edges. And this needs to be confirmed on a chart like you see behind me before we can actually label it 4K. So what you'll find is that even our HD lenses in the middle will resolve more than 4K actually. But on the sides, it sort of just lost to HD. So all in all, they've invested a lot from a factory standpoint in making sure that our 4K lenses are completely bespoke.
Right. Now, obviously we've got this, the lenses that you make, the partnership that you've got with Blackmagic Design, which people love. Can you talk a little bit about it?
Well, I mean, yeah. So this partnership with Blackmagic Design was actually, they've done a great job. They've created a fantastic lens at a great price that really offers no compromise. It's future-proof, and there's really no disadvantages to actually using this lens as opposed to even lenses that cost 4 times, 5 times as much. And so we're very, very happy with the lens itself, and we're very happy with the outlook going forward.
That's great. And if you want to summarize do you have a few words to talk about the side of things?
Especially when it comes to Blackmagic users and so on, it's key to sort of note that investing in these broadcast lenses, at the beginning of your project or even including them in your project, it's basically an investment in the sort of quality of your productions, as well as the ease of filming, and overall, they last and they will fulfill the purpose for a long time. In addition, obviously, Fuji has a lot of high quality options, and it doesn't mean you have to compromise on these either.
Fantastic. Richard, have you got anything else to add to the, you're a filmmaker yourself, in addition to being a technical geek. So, have you got something
Oh
to add?
yeah, I'm a geek. No, I guess it's just fantastic that just because you're on a tighter budget, there's an option for you to still have a highly professional 2/3 inch broadcast lens, and I think it, like Amrit was saying, it can make a huge difference just to the overall quality of your production and the ease of creating that production. Everything from your camera operators to your CCU operators, if you're controlling from a control room, it makes life a lot easier and a lot smoother. And in the end, it takes less time. It takes less time to make your to produce your show or whatever you're doing, So I think it makes a big difference, and it's great that there's some more affordable options on the market. And yeah, it's even on the cine side, which we're going to talk about now. I think we've got a really compelling lens offering on the cine side as well.
Cool. Yeah, I would love to hear more about the lens on that side.
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically, I think the reason we chose the Fujinon XK20 to 120 is that it's very well suited to the new 12K, the Ursa Mini Pro 12K. And that's for a lot of the same reasons, actually, that Amrit discussed in terms of the differences between our 4K lenses and our HD lenses. A lot of the same kind of technologies went into or go into our 4K Super 35 motion picture lenses. So yeah, I think the thing when you're shooting with a 12K camera, it's really about are you getting 12K? Are you really resolving 12K? And that has a lot more to do with the optics that you put in front of your sensor than it does the rest of the camera.
On that note, let me ask you, how can you ensure that you're taking full advantage of a 12K resolution camera?
Well, yeah, I think that's what we're going to go through. But I think kind of what I just said was that the camera itself is only part of the whole imaging system. I think DPs know this very well, cinematographers know this very well, and those of us who are a bit more on the geeky, nerdy side, we tend to get obsessed with cameras and think, we get obsessed with photo sites and the technology and the sensor and the image processing pipeline, and we don't think so much about the optics. But I think the optics are critically important when we're looking at 8K cameras, 12K cameras, because your optics then become the bottleneck, or the danger is that the optics can become the weakest point in the system. And really, when it comes down to resolving more resolution, I think it's the control of light within the lens that's really important. In terms of minimizing internal reflections, you've got a lot of glass elements inside a lens, especially inside a zoom lens. So minimizing internal reflections between different glass elements inside, and glare, anything that can reduce contrast is even more important at higher resolutions. And I want to take you through some of that with the XK 20 to 120 especially.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I think we've got some slides that I'll take you guys through. Yeah, so just to introduce, for anybody who hasn't heard of this lens or doesn't know the kind of nomenclature that we use, the XK20 to 120 is a T3.5 zoom lens. It's a cost-effective, all-in-one PL mount lens that gives you a cinematic look that you'd expect from a cine zoom lens. It's parfocal, so that means that whatever point or whatever distance that you're focusing at, if you've got that focus pin sharp and you then change the focal length, so you zoom in or out, you can be assured that whatever you're focused on stays pin sharp in focus through the whole zoom range. So that's what we mean when we talk about parafocal. And that's a term that you'll hear on the broadcast side as well, and it means exactly the same thing with the broadcast lenses. We also have no breathing. So when we talk about focus breathing, we're talking about that the effect on some lenses that when you change the focus, you actually see a slight visual, looks like a slight zoom happening in the lens, or a slight change in focal length while you're focusing, and that's something that you really don't want at all. And that's actually an aspect that separates a lot of kind of photo zoom lenses from cinema zoom lenses. So a lot of people want to know, why does a cinema zoom lens cost so much compared to a photo zoom lens? Well, that's one of the biggest reasons. If you're taking photos, and you change your focus, it doesn't really matter so much if you get a slight visible change in focal length, because you're just taking still images. But when you're taking motion, when you're taking video, you're recording that slight change in that slight zoom. It makes a big difference. So any cine zoom lenses should have no focus breathing. So the XK20 to 120 is also optimized for HDR. This is where we're moving into. It's not only about higher resolutions, it's also about higher dynamic range. So we're talking a lot about, HDR formats now. Even the new iPhones, shoot HDR. So HDR is a buzzword. I mean, it has been for a few years. But again, optics play a lot into contrast, and HDR is really all about contrast. So the 20 to 120 is available in kind of two configurations. One with a dedicated drive unit in a ENG style. So this will be a hand kind of held hand control drive unit on the side, mounts onto the side of the lens. Very well suited to documentary style use. Anywhere where you're run and gunning and you're needing to very quickly have control over zoom and focus from your fingertips. And then there's a version that's available without that drive unit, just the lens itself, completely manual. But that, of course, is still compatible with your normal cine focus motors. So you can set that up with normal focus, zoom, iris motors like you would any other zoom lens. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, so one of the biggest questions that is coming up with a lot of lenses, I guess, now that we're getting more and more formats, is whether a particular lens covers a particular camera sensor. So in the case of the Ursa Mini Pro 12K, the XK20 to 120 does cover the Ursa Mini Pro. We can go on to the next slide and show you a little bit more about which formats it particularly covers. So you will cover, fully cover 12K 16 by 9 and 8K UHD 16 by 9. There may be some vignetting on the 12K DCI, the 17 by 9 and the 8K DCI, but your 16 by 9 ratios, your 12K and your 8K, it's going to fully cover. So any vignetting on the 17 to 9, the DCI spec formats, or even the widescreen, the 12K widescreen 2.4 to 1, may depend on the zoom, focus, iris position. You might get some vignetting, especially very wide. But the 16 by 9 formats, you won't get any vignetting. It's going to cover that sensor. Yeah, if we can move to the next slide. So yeah, just to kind of go through this again. There should be, I don't know if you can press again, there should be some green. Yeah, there we go. So again, 12K 16 by 9, you're going to get full sensor coverage. 8K UHD 16 by 9, you're going to get full sensor coverage. The other modes that are not highlighted in green, you get depending on the zoom position specifically. So yeah, we can move on. We can move on and talk about kind of one of the most important factors, I guess, which is resolving power and resolution. So does the XK20 to 120 actually resolve 12K resolution? Well, as Amrit was mentioning, the kind of charts that we use to calibrate and to check this, yes, it does. So if you can just move on again, yeah. So towards the center of any of these focus charts, you get these parallel lines, which get tighter and tighter and smaller, and this is how we measure resolving power in terms of contrasted black and white resolution detail. So you can just kind of build this slide one more. Yeah, so at the actual center of this chart, I don't know if you can see this from the compression of the streaming, but on the left side kind of corner there, we're at 360 lines per millimeter. And on the right side, we're actually at 400 lines per millimeter, and which is actually the equivalent of 22K resolution. So at the center of the lens, we're actually getting way beyond 12K resolution in terms of the ability to see those tiny parallel black and white lines. So yeah, basically we resolve more than 12K resolution on this lens, way more than 12K at the center. So yeah, we can just build this lens a little, build that slide a little bit more. Okay, so one of the other factors that I spoke about when I was kind of introducing this lens is contrast. And this is super important with HDR. And the things that can reduce contrast in a lens are internal reflections, and this can come because of coatings, lens coatings, and also it can come from just different components inside the lens reflecting or refracting light. It can come from the type of paint that's used inside the lens itself. So for HDR, you're really wanting to cut off any unwanted light from bouncing around inside the lens. So just you can build this slide a little bit more. So yeah, you can start to see here some of the contrast difference with a other lens compared to the XK20 to 120. You can see the blacks are darker, and we're going to look at this in the next slide on a scope. You can see here a prime lens. We're not going to tell you what prime lens that is, compared to the Fujinon XK20 to 120, and you can see a difference in the overall contrast. This is shot with an Alexa Mini, like it says there, at 500 ISO. And yeah, just going to the next slide. This is at 20 millimeters. The next one should be at 50 millimeters. If you can just, yeah, this is, the slide is updating so slowly for me on my side. So you can see there the contrast difference. You can see the blacks are lower on the scope, and the highlights are a little bit higher. It's just expanded a little bit more, and that's where you're seeing the contrast on the scope there, compared to the average kind of prime lens on the right side. The Fujinon XK20 to 120 is on the left side. If you move forward, I think we've got this at 50 millimeters as well. Just keep moving forward. Yeah, so you can see there again, you've got the blacks the shadows are registering much lower on the scope. So that's where you're getting higher contrast and you're getting better HDR performance. So just move on again. Yeah, so this also is apparent in terms of kind of lens flare and general glare. So if you just build the slide again, so yeah, on a lens which is maybe slightly older coatings or older kind of designs, or a lens that's not designed for HDR, you can see on the left side you've got a lack of contrast in the image. You've got an uncontrolled flare. And on the right side of the image with the XK20 to 120, you've got great contrast in that image, and you've got just the right amount of lens flare. It's controlled. So yeah, you can just build on. The other thing that we provide in the XK20 to 120 is the Cook Eye data communication. And this is built into the mount on the camera side, and it's built into the mount on the lens side as well. So these electrical contacts, they can supply, or they do supply power to the lens, including to the servo, if the servo is attached. It allows the camera to receive all the lens metadata. So, especially in a zoom lens where you've got focus, you've got zoom, you've got iris, all three of those can be at different positions. The camera is actually able to record all that metadata. So you'll get that metadata with your video file, where the focus position was, where the zoom position was, where the iris position was. This is especially useful in VFX workflows, for visual effects as well. So yeah, and you've got control, lens control via the connector on the camera as well as the connector on the actual servo unit. So if you're using the XK20 to 120 with the servo unit, that connector also allows you to supply power to the lens. It also passes lens metadata, and it gives you servo control also, just like you would be with an ENG lens. So with the LA16 and the other lenses we were talking about earlier on the broadcast side, which allow you to use a servo kit, like control kit at the back of the tripod, that works with this lens as well. So yeah, it means that the XK20 to 120, while it's a cine lens, it can be also used in a very similar way that you'd use an ENG lens because of the servo. So that makes it super versatile for ENG, documentary style run and gun shooting, but with Super 35, cinematic camera. And you can use it like you would any normal cine zoom lens without the servo unit. If you want to use, your more traditional lens motors and motor controller. So yeah, and it's a very affordable lens if you especially consider that it has the potential to replace a whole set of prime lenses. It's a very affordable option.
Fantastic, Richie. Thank you very much for the detailed description and explanations. Anything else that you would like to add before we wrap the session up?
I don't know, Amrit, anything you can think of, or have we?
I think we've covered everything, but yeah, I mean, what I would like to say is that at any time, if you do need more information, if anything we can do to support you guys any longer, of course, you can reach out to me directly or Richard itself, and we'd be happy to give you a demo or answer any questions you might have about the products.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, sorry, Jaffer, go ahead.
You go ahead. Fine.
No, I was just going to say, like, there's only so much information that we can kind of, give in a relatively short session like this. So we're really kind of skimming the surface. So yeah, we just encourage, like Amrit said, if you need more information, get in touch with us.
Sure. Yeah, I'm sure that there'll be people who'll be, looking forward to catching up with you in detail. But thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. I'm sure that all of us found it very informative, and we wish you all the best. And I'm sure that we'll be hearing more from the people who are in the audience. Thanks a lot.